Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today my topic for this video is the decorator. So decorator basically interesting functionality under the Pythons. You can say like the Python has interesting capability called decorator to add functionality to an existing codes. So basically we can add or we can modify the functionality of existing functions like functions, or you can say any callable object. And so decorator basically a meta, like the terminology of the meta programming, because it run and it modify the functionality of existing functions on the runtime, like the in the syntax function one and function two. We basically create a decorator like that. This is the existing function. We we just add new functionality around the existing functionality. So we are wrapping the things. So this way we can compare the decorator with wrappers. So for example, this is our like the simple function, and we want to decorate this. We want to add more functionality around this. So this is the simple example. We can decorate this, wrap this with extra functionality. So this way, like the decorator work into the function into the Pythons, we can decorate any callable object here. And basically, decorator provide the capability to programmer to modify the behavior of any function or any class. Both the things are callable. We can modify both the things. And here also you can see same thing mentioned. Decorator allow us to wrap another function in order to extend the behavior, because it's not altering the behavior. Like the existing behavior is present, function existing functionality is similar to this pen. We are adding the functionality, like we are wrapping the things around this pen here. So similar way, like this, suppose this pen is a function and we are wrapping more the functionality around this pen. So similar way, like the wrapper, or you can say the decorator is working to the Pythons. And you can see here same thing mentioned, like it's wrapped the function without permanently modifying it. So on the runtime, it's only work on the runtime. Once we call on the runtime or any decorator, then it modify the functionality. But in the behind the scene, like the function is remain in their original state. So let's start with the basic concept related to the decorator. As we know, like the everything is object in Python, and we cover like the object in thorough detail in our previous video. So similar to other objects like the list, string, function is also object, and things is changed, like the function is a callable object. And we can pass the function. So similar to other objects, like we can pass a list, we can pass a string in any functions. Similar way, we can pass the functions as a argument also. And here are the few properties of function object. And these properties are you can also say these are the prerequisite for any callable object for the decorator. So as a functions, like we know function is an instance of object type, like function is an object. And further we can store like the functions in the variables. Similar to other objects, we can store the functions also in the variables, and we can pass the function as a parameter to another functions. In case of any requirement, we can pass function as a parameter. So this is like the prerequisite for the decorators, and these are the main property of functions. And we can return function from the function. In our video related to the function, we thoroughly discuss the functions, how function work, how we declare the function, and function return the value. But here you can see here, like the up to till we see like the function is returning the result, returning the value. But here like the function can return another function in response. And next one is the function can store in any data structures like the list or any similar to other data structures. We can store functions in any data structure in any format. And these property basically the prerequisite for any decorators. Let me show you the codes uh, to prove these all properties from the function ends and how the decorator works. So these are the prerequisite for the decorators. And first one is the decorator prerequisite to function refer to the same object. So basically here we are creating. So this is the very first prerequisite for the decorator. So this is the very first prerequisite for the decorator. Here basically we are referring the two names. Basically, we are using the two reference for the same object into the memory. Like suppose this is the memory. Okay. And suppose this is our object. Okay. And here basically in this function, this is the like the same object into the memory once we create a function. So this is the object. You can see here, this is the object, and we are calling this object with two names. So this is the very basic prerequisite of decorators. Like we call the same object into the memory with two function name here, like the function name 1 and 2. And let me show you the in the code also. So here we are defining a function. This is the very simple syntax. We discussed this in our function video also. So here, like this is the def keywords. This is the prerequisite to define a function, then a function name. Then in the bracket, we are passing the arguments and then colons. And with the colon, this header section of the function is end. And this is the body of the functions, like the statements we want to pass under the function. So this is the function name, like the function first underscore function. This is the function name, and argument we are passing the argument 1. So this is the very basic functions here we are creating. And now we are calling this function. So you can see here, we are just calling this function. This is the function name, and we are calling this function. And we are passing one argument. As we are passing one argument, we are while defining the function also. So we need to pass this value for the one argument. So you can see here, it's printing the hello call same object. So here with the first name, we are calling this object. Now move to the second example. So here basically we are creating another function name, basically the another reference function name. And this function also calling the same object as I explained. So this function also calling this same object here. And if we pass here, you can see here, this is the our existing function, a function object, and now we are creating the another function object here. You can see here, this is the new reference for the function object, and we are passing the value here. This is the this is the callable object. We are calling this callable object with this value. And you can see here, it's also printing the same thing. So you can see like that this is the object. Suppose this is our object, and first we call this object from here, and now we call this object from here. You can see here, we call the same object with two names. So this is the two references. Let me draw the function here. So you can see here, like the same object we call with two names. So this is the way how the backend is work. If we call the same function with two names, two reference. So this is the very prerequisite for the decorator. And so you can see here, this is the very basic example how we call a same function with two names. Then we move to the next property of the functions, and this one also like the prerequisite for the decorator also. For example, we can pass function as a parameter. You can see here, like earlier we do, like we pass the attributes and different variables into the functions on the runtime, so and all things. But here we are passing a function inside the another function. Like first we create a function, then we call those functions. In earlier we see those kind of work, those simple, but here we are passing function as a argument into the another function. So basically, like the function which take another function as a argument is called the high order function. So you can see here, here is the new terminology, is high order function. Like a function which take a function as a argument is called the high order function. So here I'm creating a very simple function, is the function scale. So here you can see here I'm passing the one attribute. This is the simple syntax as we discussed in earlier also. So here I'm creating a function and it's returning the scale. And here I'm creating another function. This basically increment value by 1. You can see here, these are the two different functions. This is the function for the scale. This is function for the to increase the value by 1. And this is the another function I create, and the name here I'm using the naming convention as per the PAP8, because here my motive to define the functionality of high order function, how we pass the function as the argument into the inside function. So that's why I choose name is the high order function, and you can define any name as per the best practice. So here in this function I'm passing here function. You can see here, like the first argument is a function, not any argument, and second thing is the argument. So in the first position, I'm passing a function, another function. second position I'm passing the argument, and then inside the function, so this is the function we pass, and then I'm passing the argument for this function. Here I'm calling this function and then passing the argument for the low level function. So this is the high order functions, and inside the high order function I'm calling those functions which I pass here as a argument. So here I'm calling those argument function. You can see here, this is the function I'm calling and then passing the value here, and in the end I'm returning the result. So let me execute this. And here I'm calling this high order function, and I'm passing here one function. This function is the function scale. You can see here, this function basically calculating the scale. So I'm calling this function and I'm passing the values 3. This is the attribute we need to define because this is the mandate. So once I call this function, you can see here it's printing the 9. So you can see here, first I'm calling this high order function. Under the high order function, like my above function is calling. So with this function I pass here. So now this code is executed and it's calculating the scale and then returning the scale value for this attribute. So you can see here it's printing the 9. It's returning the 9 basically. And if I call the next function increment, this function, and it's basically increment value by 1. So you can see here, if I execute this high order function and passing the function increment here and value is 4, so it's printing the 5. You can see here. So this way, like we can pass the function as a argument. And let me move to the another one. So till now we see like we can call a function with multiple object names, multiple function names. We can pass function as a argument. Next property is to return a function. So till now we see like we can returning the values, we can returning different result in the end once we call a function. But here we are returning a functions. Like in the end we are returning another function. So this is also a prerequisite of decorator. And you can see here I'm creating a function. This is the similar syntax we follow above. And you can see like I'm creating a function, and inside this function I'm creating another function. You can see here diff function name. This is our first function, and inside this function I'm creating another function. You can see here this is basically called a nested function inside the function. So this is also a prerequisite of decorator, to pass function inside a function. And here inside this function I'm printing this welcome to nested function and then returning this function. This nested function is returning this function returned. Here I'm creating a function, name is the function returned, and this is function which in the end is written by this function. And if I call this function, you can see here, let me run this code. So basically I define this nested function here, and here I'm call this function. So basically once I call this function, this basically return a callable object. This is the object name, object reference, and this is a callable object. And once I call this callable object, is returning it's printing the value. Like you can see here, it's printing welcome to nested function. Once I call this callable object, it's call this function inside the above function, and it's return this code. It's run this code. Once I call this callable object, is print this code. You can see here, welcome to nested function. So this way, like the function is work. Like we can call functions, we can return functions, we can pass function as a argument. So these are the prerequisite for a callable object, and this is the prerequisite for the decorator also. So next is move to the callable object, and I will show you the overall flows. Like here also I discuss the flows, how we move things, but here is like the nice pictures to explain the overall flows once we call a decorator and all stuff. So basically before proceed further, I first discuss the callable object here. So basically a decorator is a callable object. Any object which is created with call double underscore method is called a callable object. So basically decorator take a callable object, then modify those callable object, and then add like the modify or add some functionality to callable object, then return decorated, like decorate, modify the functionality, and then return those decorated functionality. And we can like the wrap, or we can decorate the function and class in similar way. So here are the below, this is the example. So here first I'm creating a function. You can see here def and then the function name as display here. This is the function name, And this is basically the decorator function. So you can see here in this image, this section is the decorator. Basically, this is the decorator. You can see here, this is the decorator. And you can see here below is the simple functions. You can see here, let me highlight this one also. This is the simple function which we need to decorate. So which function which we need to decorate is called the decorated function, because we return those functions as a decorated, because we need to decorate those functions. We need to modify functionality for those functions. And which function we call to modify the functionality of existing function is called the decorator function. So above one, this is the decorator function. This one is the decorator function. And this is the simple functions which we need to decorate. And let me show you the how the things is working to the codes. So first we create a functions with def keywords. You can see here, this is the def keywords, and then this is the function name. And we are passing here functions as the argument. And then this is the another nested function inside the above functions. As we discussed in the previous code example also, how we pass the function inside another function and how we create the nested function. This is the example of nested function. And inside the nested function, we have this print statement. Okay, this is a decorator. And here we are calling the function. You can see here, function, then blank square bracket. You can see here, this function we pass inside the decorator. Now we call this function here. And it's return the decorated function. You can see here, it return the wrapper here, inner. Inner is the nested function inside the decorator. So it's return the decorated function as the output. You can see here, as a result, it's returning the inner. You can see here, as I highlighted here, this is return basically the inner. And this is the like the below is the simple functions, like we create a simple function name or a simple function, and this is the simple print statement. This is simple example, like the simple function example. We need to decorate this. So to decorate this, first things is we need to call the decorator function. So here we are calling like decorator function. This function we call here. You can see here we are calling the decorator. And then inside the bracket, we are passing the simple function. This is the function we want to decorate. So this is the decorated function which we need to decorate. And this is the decorator. Simple function is the function which we need to decorate, and decorate function is the decorator. And this return a callable object, basically a decorated function in form of callable object. So this is the callable object. And once we call this callable object here on step 5, then it's printing, this is a decorator, and this statement is printed from here. You can see here, this is the statement, this is the decorator. So inside the nested function, this printing, this is decorator. And after that, this call this existing function, like the simple function. Now this printing that this is a simple function. So this way we modify the functionality of simple functions. Like we add this new functionality here. This is a decorator. We add a new functionality inside in around the like the simple function. Basically, we wrap the simple functions. So this way we can add any functionality as per the requirement. And let me show you the workflow. So here basically we call the decorator. You can see here, this is the decorator name, and we are calling the decorator here. And here we are passing a simple function. So this is the step 1 for the decorator. This is a step 1. You can see here. And once we call the decorator, then control is go to the decorator function inside. You can see here, this is the step 2. Here basically we control is go here, decorator function. Then step 3 is control move to the inner functions, like the nested functions. You can see here, inner is a nested function. So control is move here. On the step 4, it return this nested function or decorated function. You can see here, it return this nested function or the decorated function in the step 4. So here basically this is a decorated callable object. This is written from here to here. Once we call this decorator, this return the this callable function here, and this is a callable object. This is written from here. And step 5, like once we call this callable object, here. In this way, we can call on the step 5. And once we call this object, then once we call this object on the step 5, then the control is go to the step 6. You can see here, this is the step 6. And again, like the control is go to the inner function, like the nested function. Then next, and from here, from the nested function, control is moved inside the nested function. So this code is executed inside the nested function. So you can see here, step 7 is printing this statement. This is a decorator. On step 7, it's this code is run. On the step 8, this function is called, which we need to decorate on the step 8. You can see here, this function is called here. And so on the step 9, like our workflow, like our control is moved to this function, which we pass here, which we need to decorate. And then this statement under this function is executed on the step 10. You can see here, step 10, this statement is executed. So this is the overall workflow of the function. And in the end, it's returning it's printing all the details and all the things as per the code on the step 11. So this is the overall end-to-end workflow of the decorator, how we define a decorator, how we create a nested function, then we call functions inside the function, how we pass function as a argument, then how we decorate another functions. So this way, like the overall functions, overall workflows work behind the scene. And let me move to the code example for this image. So here are the code example. If you can see here, this is the code for the above image. And here I'm using the simple def keywords to define a function. And this is the decorator function name. And this is the nested function. Similar to this, this is the same code. Here you can see here, and it's returning the inner function here. And this is the simple function which we need to decorate. So this is a simple function which we need to decorate, and this is decorator. And if I run this, you can see here, I'm running this. And if I call the simple function, you can see here, I'm calling the simple function and it's printing that this is a simple function because I'm calling this function only. So it's run as per the design. And if I decorate this function, then I need to call the decorated functions. This is the decorated function I'm calling here and passing the simple function as a argument inside the decorated function. And let me call this, and this return the callable object from here. This return a callable object, and once I call this callable object, so you can see here, it's written the modified decorator here. Now, like this statement is coming from the both the functions. You can see here, first statement is printing from here. This is a decorator. So this first statement is printing from this code inside the nested function. And after this statement, now our simple function is called, and then the function code under the simple function is executed. So this way it's run. So this is the live example of the codes for the decorator. And this is the one way to call the decorator. Another way we can call with @ and then the decorator names. So this is the another way we can call the decorators here. Like we just need to put the name of the decorator with @ while defining the function. So here, like the similar functions, this is the decorator function, and we are calling the same function here. You can see here, @ decorate _ func. This is the function name. Same function we are calling here in different way with the @ method. And this is also the same function. You can see here, we have the simple function, and here also like the similar function we define here again. And if we define this and then call the simple function, you can see here just I'm calling the simple function, and you can see here this returning the decorated output. So you can see here, this is the similar output if we run this decorated object or if we run this simple functions with @ decorator name. So this is the another way how we can use the decorator. And next one is if we have the requirement to pass the parameters inside the nested functions and return the value. So in the next example, you can see here I'm creating another decorator function decorator, and this is the wrapper function inside the decorator, and here I'm passing the values. And this is the arbitrary argument. You can see here, this is the arbitrary argument. This is the arbitrary keyword argument. And if you have any doubts regarding the arbitrary argument, you can refer to our previous videos, which we thoroughly discuss how we can pass the arbitrary or key arguments. So basically, arbitrary argument means we can pass any number of arguments. And then you can see here this is the first print statement, wrapper code before the decorator functions. And now here, like the function is called, this is the function we pass inside the decorator. Then this function is called with this argument, and then we return the value. And then we have the next print statement here, like the wrapper code after the decorator function. Then it's return the value. You can see here it's returning the value, and in the end it's returning the modified function, modified decorator, or you can say a modified wrapper. And let me call this decorator here, and here I'm using the @decorator name. So this is the function name here from the function decorator. And then we have the new function here. This is the new function, and we are passing these two argument inside this function, and this is the code inside this function, like the print statement. And then it's returning the multiplication of two numbers. We are passing two number here, and then return the multiplication of two number. And so here in the below section, we are calling those functions, like the multiply two numbers function. So first we need to define these two arguments. So here I'm defining these two arguments. First argument value is 1, second is 2. And here I'm printing the statement. So you can see here, this is the name of the function, multi underscore two number. Here I'm calling, and then passing the argument first is 1 and argument 2 is 2. And if I call this, you can see here, it's first run the print statement inside the nested function. You can see here, it's first run this code. You can see here, it's first run this code. Then it moved to the function. It's moved to this function, and it's print this code inside this function. You can see here, inside the decorated function, this code is executed. And after this particular execute code is executed, you can see here now the wrapper code after the decorator. So you can see here how the flow is work. So once I call, is this statement is run, then this function is called, and the statement inside this function is run. You can see here this statement is run, and after this print statement is run. You can see here first statement is wrapper code before the decorated function, then inside the decorated function, then wrapper code after the decorated function. You can see here this way, like the code is run, and after that it returns the value. You can see here value. So in the end we are like the printing the value here. So here it's returning the value 2. You can see here this is the 2, and this return the value here after this code. So this way, like the functions with arguments, we can pass the multiple arguments inside the functions, and this way, like that decorator work with the arguments. And next one is the chaining decorator. And chaining decorator means like we are using the multiple decorator for the same functions to decorate a functions. So till now we see like the one function, one decorator, and chaining decorator means we decorate with one decorator, then we requirement, okay, we want to modify more functionality, we use another decorator, like we use multiple decorators. So chaining decorator means the simple stuff. So here in the code, you can see here, first I'm creating a first decorator here, and the code syntax is same, which I discussed above. So this is the same way I create the first decorator. Then I create a second decorator. And in the first decorator, basically you can see here, I'm adding the value by 1. Like I'm passing a function here, then this is the wrapper. Then here I'm calling the function, then returning the value and adding the value by 1 here in the returns. In the final result, I'm increasing the value by 1 in the first decorator. In the second decorator, if you see here, I'm passing the function again, then value, and here I'm taking the scale. Basically, I increase the values by scales. Basically, here I'm using the scale function. And if I call these about decorators, so here, like I'm calling the first, you can see here, this is the second decorator, first decorator, and this is the simple function, and it's return the 25. So this is a simple function, and in this function, I'm calling the decorators to modify the functionality of this function. And if I run this code, and here I'm calling this function above function here. So you can see here, once I call this function, it's returning the 626. So in this way, like once I call, it first go the decorator 2. first decorator 2 is executed and it's modify the functionality of this function. And it's basically take the scare value of 25 is 625. So it return the 625. Then it call the decorator 1, and this value is 625 go to the decorator 1, then its value is increased by 1. So it's finally returned the 626. So you can see here I'm printing this function, calling this function. So it's returning the 626. So once I execute I call this function, first this function call the decorator 2. You can see here, this is the decorator 2, and it return the scare value. So 25, basically we pass the 25 here, and the scare of 25 is 625. And then this values go to the first decorator. You can see here, this is the first decorator, and this first decorator basically increment value by 1. Now after adding this 1 value, it's returning the 626. So final outcome is 626. So in the next example, you can see here, in the next example, first we call the decorator 1, then we call the decorator 2. And here again, we are passing the 25. And once we call this function, decorator function, is returning the 676. So you can see here, now the things is changed. Like once we change the sequence of calling of decorator functions, then the sequence also change. It first call the decorator 1. First decorator 1 decorate the function. Then those decorated value passed to the function 2, then function 2 execute and decorate value further. So if I move back, so here basically if we call this first decorator first, then it's increase value by 1. You can see here, if we pass 25, it's return the 26 from here. And then pass 26 to decorator 2, it's return the scare value of 26, and scare value of 26 is 676. So this way, the decorator is work, and we can use multiple decorator as per our requirement. So this is all about the decorators, and this is the basic concept how the decorator is work, how the behind the scenes things is work, how we can use the callable object, how we can pass a function inside the another function, how we can return the functions from another function, how we can define the nested function. So in this video, I cover these all topics. Further, if you want to use this code or modify this code, or you can utilize this code, you can directly access this code from the description of the videos. I will put the link of this collab inside the description of this video. And thank you for watching my video, and bye-bye.